Hi, my name is Corbett Hobbs. I'm a senior product manager at Amazon, and I'm here to present how to wield data to drive product improvements. So I use data skills pretty much every day in my current role. I like to say data rules everything around me, or dream. Um, I think being comfortable with data skills is hugely helpful and impactful, really in any role you're at, but especially in product management. Um, for these three reasons. Of course, there are more, but these are the ones that um, I thought were important to highlight here. So I think being comfortable with data gives you an analytical mindset. I'll go into my background in the next slide, but just for a little brief bio, I started off in politics and then went into um, like politics, product management, and now I'm working in grocery pickup. Those are completely different skill sets, or it's completely different industries, but the common thread that allowed me to kind of jump between them is data and data skills. So I think having that gives you an analytical mindset. You can train your mind on any discipline or industry, because a lot of times the data is similar, and recognize patterns that cut across them. I think one other thing that kind of flows into the next point here is that being comfortable with data gives you transferable skills, especially in tech. Data skills are in high demand. If you can pull your own data, if you can understand it and interpret it, it's hugely impactful. Every company has a database and data just waiting to be analyzed. Frankly, there's just not enough time of the day to analyze all of it in my experience. But if you have those skills, you can turn them loose pretty much anywhere. I think anywhere you want. And then the final thing is, and I'll touch more on this later on in the presentation, is ability to influence. So I think having data fluency helps create compelling arguments, more compelling than they would be with more qualitative arguments or supporting arguments there. It also improves the velocity and accuracy of business decisions. So if you're a product manager and focusing on a certain business, you can translate the business needs that you know and you have directly to data questions that you can then pull yourself and cut out other teams such as BI as a middleman. Not knocking BI, but I think just keeping kind of like the loop close with business needs and data, again, in my experience, is very helpful to make sure that nothing is lost in translation. So it's a little bit about why I think data is important in product management. And then just for a quick agenda, what we'll cover is my background briefly, how I got to where I am, a little bit about grocery pickup, which is what I'm working on now at Amazon, from Whole Foods. And then some explanations of how to create customer obsessed metrics, again, at Amazon, but I think you can apply it to any company. Setting realistic goals and prioritizing features, designing pilots, and then influencing through data. So without further ado, I'll just go briefly into my background. So I started off in politics. I've always been interested in politics. I had a degree, a bachelor's of science in foreign service, international politics from Georgetown. Soon, right after I graduated, I worked in the Senate on Capitol Hill, working in press for my senator, Chuck Schumer. And then about 8 months into that, I got a really cool opportunity to actually start a politics vertical at this startup called Graphic, that was based in Santa Barbara, California. So very different from DC, very beautiful. And basically, in a nutshell, when I was there, I built this vertical from scratch. The company was kind of a consumer-oriented research engine, so you can sort, filter, compare, across a variety of different kind of industries like finance, education, health, politics being one of them. So I was on the consumer side. And on the business side, we worked with publishers such as AP, Reuters, Huffington Post, Yahoo, etc. And in my capacity there, I brought thousands of political data visualizations that were then integrated onto these publishers' articles. kind of tying it all together was the semantic technology, this kind of knowledge graph, so similar to Google, where you can tie data points together across completely different industries or disciplines and make connections that way. And that was eventually why Amazon actually acquired Graphic in 2017 for Alexa. So I was doing pretty similar things to Amazon, much more voice forward though, instead of visualization forward, although now they're kind of becoming more visualization forward with a lot of the screen devices. But I spent about 1.5 years at Amazon, Alexa, again, working on politics. And I think one of my proudest accomplishments was delivering answers for the 2018 midterm elections. And then in 2018, I then switched over to Whole Foods, so business management at Whole Foods. I started off actually as a business analyst, kind of just to get my feet wet and understand the industry, and then switched into product management about a year into that, and now I'm a senior product manager at Whole Foods on Amazon, so online grocery pickup and delivery. So you might ask, how did I get into grocery business management from politics? I thought I was extremely lucky to be at Amazon, and Amazon's kind of like this. It's an ecosystem unto itself where you can, start off in one thing and do something completely different. I think Alexa and grocery are a case in point, but you have AWS. You have obviously like Amazon retail, like typical Amazon. You have pretty much anything you can think of. Amazon has. So I was really interested to explore other organizations at Amazon, especially in the more kind of physical, or non-software disciplines, since I'd been doing kind of, software type things for my entire career up until that point. But, Amazon's bread and butter is in logistics and kind of physical retail. So that was something that, was a factor, my consideration. And I mentioned earlier, I started off as a business analyst delivering insights. But ultimately, my goal was to move into PM. So I was a PM at Graphic, and I wanted to become a PM again at Amazon. And I was able to do that. And now as a PM, I help steer the business at the intersection of product operations, marketing, and launch. So, it still has that kind of like the core kind of aspect of PM is where you're at the center of it all, and, getting to interface and work with a lot of different teams. And I find that really exciting. Especially in this role, because there's so many different elements to it. Operations, you're dealing with 500 different stores across the country. Marketing is all sorts of different channels you can market. Launch is all about the business of actually getting stores to, be launched with online pickup or delivery. So it's really exciting and fascinating. And I've been here 2.5 years now and still loving it. So before I get into the data side of things, I just want to do a little bit of background on how grocery pickup actually works. If anyone's done online delivery before, the beginning of it is very similar. You basically place pick your items online from the store. So like, milk or spinach or what have you on this page here. Place their order, and instead of getting it delivered to your home, you actually go and pick it up at the store. So that's where the similarities end. Then for pickup, when you're going to the store, you can check in early, and that basically gives you the best experience, because that tells associates, the associate that is going to bring your order out to your car when you're on your way. And ideally there is a no wait time, frictionless experience where you arrive, they're waiting because they know you're on your way. And you get, you leave in like within a minute. And that's, it's I've done it many times. Obviously I'm biased, but it is a great experience. I would recommend it. And then, the final aspect of it is picking up. So 95% of cases, the associate brings your order out to your car and loads it into the trunk. But there are some stores where they either have limited parking or no parking, especially in kind of ultra urban areas like San Francisco, where I'm based, and you have to walk into the store. But the overwhelming majority of cases, the associate will bring it out to your car and again, no touching. It's especially helpful during COVID when there's no interaction except through the app and just confirming that you're there. So you may ask, why do customers even do pickup? Like, delivery is so convenient. Amazon is great at delivery. Why would anyone want to do pickup? It's a question I get a lot. And I think there are three main reasons. And this has been backed up by research as well. So one thing is that it's cheaper than delivery. There's no tip. With delivery, you have to tip a delivery driver at least $5 usually. With pickup, because you're doing the last mile, you tip yourself, I guess. So no tip. And there's also a lower order fee. So for any orders under $35, at least at Amazon, it's $1.99 for pickup versus $4.99 for delivery. So for more of our cost-conscious customers, that's a good value prop there. It's also faster than delivery, especially during COVID. We saw a lot of capacity issues just because there was so much demand, overwhelming demand, and it was hard to line up all of our I guess supply to meet that demand. But again, with pickup, you're taking care of the last mile. So as soon as the pickup is ready, as soon as your order is ready, you basically can pick up the store even earlier than your allotted window potentially may signify. So that's great for customers who either can't get a delivery slot or want it faster. I especially like it if I'm running errands and I can't guarantee when I'm going to be home. I can schedule a pickup slot for any time of the day, basically, kind of like general time when I think I'll be at the store, and then I can, either on the way from my home or to my home, just come in, pick it up. It takes literally less than a minute. And then one final thing is different item selection. So unlike with delivery, you don't have a choice of which store you pick from or you get your order from. With pickup, you do. So oftentimes, again, this is maybe specific to Whole Foods, but you have different selection at certain stores. Sometimes more selection at certain stores. So that's a key differentiator as well. Anyway, I know I talked a lot about pickup, and this presentation is about data, but I think that's kind of just at least sets the scene a little bit for some of the stuff I'm going to go into here. So we stay customer obsessed. Amazon is a famously customer obsessed company by focusing on what we call the P95. This isn't just, this can apply to any business. Like, I saw this at Alexa as well. But we also do it at grocery, Whole Foods on Amazon. And the P95 is just shorthand for the 95th percentile. So the 95th percentile highlights the worst customer experiences. In this case, our main metric is customer wait time. And if we look at the P95 for that, the 95th percentile, that will show us, what is like the top. I don't know, top is the right way to say it, but at the worst kind of 5% of our orders, like, what is the wait time that customers are experiencing there? I think having that visibility and being able to drill down into it and optimize for it, make sure that you keep the overwhelming majority of your customers happy, and also gives you a laser focus on the issues that may escape notice otherwise, outlier issues that are important to dive into and understand why they're happening and develop features for them. So I think it's a little bit better than an average, because an average you kind of conflate outliers and the average and good things together into one kind of overall metric. The average has its place for sure, but at least here we look at the P50, which is the median, and the P95, which is kind of the worst outlier experiences, and separate those and focus on the P95 to, assuming that the P50 is good, which it is for pickup, at least, to kind of, make sure that it's the best experience for all customers at all times. So just a little bit about how we use it at pickup. We track it as a time. So, for example, 95% of orders experience an on-site wait time of less than X minutes, which is what I just described. And then you can also convert it into a percent, which I find is easier for tracking purposes, and kind of just conceptualizing it in conversation. So the way you can convert it into a percent is if you take a goal for what you want your P95 to be. So like, you don't want, you basically want at least 95% of your customers to experience a wait time of X or lower. And you've set a percentage based on how many orders are meeting that threshold. So X% of orders experience a wait time within our Y minute P95 goal. Could be like 7 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever. It's just, again, easier for conceptualizing. Like we're at 95%, or we increased or decreased 100 bips, 100 basis points, which is a 100th of a percentage point, or degraded 50 bips week over week. So it's just easier to track instead of a time. So that's a little bit about the P95, and then going on from that, I think once you have that metric, we use entitlements to help prioritize our features. So in our case, we call it PDOR, or perfect drop-off rate. But depending on your business, you can also use revenue or orders or whatever as the basis for your calculation. And then you can estimate the extent of improvement via heuristics or observational studies. So with heuristics, based on improvements in adjacent areas or other features, you can kind of do a swag or do an estimate of what this upcoming feature could potentially yield in terms of improvement. So for example, adding an in-app map to help associates locate customers. We expect it will improve our metric by 250 basis points or bips. And because it's a more impactful feature, and maybe I left it off here, but obviously level of effort is important to include here as well. We'll slot it in for Q1 versus something else that's less impactful. So instead of just kind of like a high, medium, low, impact, I think giving very tangible, metrics based, assignments of improvements is helpful for prioritization and kind of understanding, what kind of benefits these features will bring. So I mentioned heuristics. You can also do observational studies. Obviously, those are like the gold standard. If you can actually observe in the field or pilot or whatever, what these features will bring, and then estimate the improvement from there. Obviously, it takes a lot of time and effort. Not always possible, but it's another way to estimate entitlements. And then I think it's helpful, once you have your kind of features and your entitlements for the year or for whatever your planning, time period is, you can then ladder up from there and aggregate it to define an achievable goal. So, I guess you always have the option of having an aspirational goal or an achievable goal, but with converting features to actual, like hard numbers, you can do a better job at estimating an achievable goal, so you don't feel bad about missing it at the end of the year if that happens. And you have much more kind of rigor around what you can accomplish. And then I already mentioned it before, but you can, this will obviously help you prioritize your roadmap based on the entitlement ranking and level of effort. So moving on. So I touched on experiments. We experiment often at Amazon. I've run many experiments, which is a lot of fun. So I think for some tips on that, experiment often, but when you do, clearly define your plan up front. So I'll just run through kind of the bullet points here, and then give you a little case study of how I've done that recently with an experiment. So, at the beginning, when you're going to propose an experiment, you want to explain the rationale and the risks, right? Why should we run this pilot? We think it'll be good for customers and revenue, but also there are probably risks involved as well. So why should we not run this pilot? There may be risks to operations and profitability, for example. Once you've laid those out, you then can go into what the actual pilot you're proposing is. So what is this pilot? What does it entail, and how to implement it? So I'll just kind of intro the case that I'm thinking of. in 2020, I ran a pilot to remove our free shipping threshold, which is the $35 fee I mentioned before. Not that the fee is $35, but basically for any orders under $35, you pay a $199 fee. And I wanted to run an experiment to see what would happen if we remove that. And as I said before, I think removing it would be good for customers and revenue. But it also runs the risk of degrading operations if if there are too many orders basically that come in and we're not prepared to handle them. Also could give us a hit on profitability because we're removing an income stream that we were collecting before by removing this fee entirely. So that's the rationale risk. The proposal, the pilot, was to conduct an A/B test network-wide. So at that point, we had 80 stores or so launched across the country. And the proposal was to split 40 or so into a control group and 40 or so into a test group. We also had the option to do before and after, where we switched all 80 to remove the FSD, for example. That option was easier to implement, to just do it wholesale, but I felt it was better to instead do an A/B test and invest a little bit more tech effort to just changing it for half the stores in order to control for seasonality. So you never know. Obviously seasonality depends on the business, but seasonality or other outlier factors can impact your best laid plans. And if we did a before and after comparison, there may be events or holidays. In this case, COVID. we launched this pilot right before COVID, and that really, if we had done a before and after comparison, that would have completely impacted the veracity of the pilot, and I think added too much noise. So, A/B tests are good in that sense. And implementation was just, working with the product teams and marketing teams to both market the fact that we're reducing our fee, as well as what specific string changes are we going to make on site. Just laying all those out so that, the plan is clear to everyone, as well as your managers, et cetera. Will save a lot of headaches for everyone. And then finally, have an expectation as well as of what the pilot will bring, and lay out what your evaluation criteria is as well. So in this case, I had a financial analysis that laid out kind of a compared order volume versus revenue versus profit. And again, based on heuristics, like what could we reasonably expect from removing our FSD? And then what metrics are we going to look at? So monitoring financials, customer acquisition, operational performance, net promoter score. There's a whole range of metrics that both pertain to the core kind of question of the pilot, but also are secondary that are important to track as well. And then also, potentially dividing these into cohorts for further analysis is always helpful. So, going back to my earlier point, there's always more data to analyze. You kind of just have to draw a line somewhere, but yeah. And then at the end, reviewing your results and making a recommendation. So, based on your evaluation criteria, whether your pilot meets or doesn't meet the success criteria that you outlined, you give a recommendation once the pilot is concluded, and either continue on or roll it back. So that's how I approach pilots. It's served me well. I hope it's helpful to you as well. So finally, just going into a little bit more detail about how data fluency has helped me build influence. It helps you understand business drivers, and especially how some metrics, how one metric, influences another, relates to another. So, with the pilot, for example, we would see, order volume went one way, and then average order size went another way, and revenue went another way. And it's really interesting to see kind of the interplay of those metrics. It's one example, but I think the closer you get to those metrics, you can really understand, when something happens to your business, when it's unexpected, for example, like where would you expect, the impact to lie? It may not be where you would typically expect it, but if you have a firm grasp of the metrics and how they all kind of work with one another, you may find things that don't necessarily come to the forefront initially. I think it's very helpful to be fluent in data, again, to ensure your business needs don't get lost in translation with the BI team. So I always pull my own data. I was a business analyst, so I'm very comfortable kind of doing it on my own. Again, not a knock on a BI team. They're hugely important and influential in any business. But I think just, with anything, like there's always a propensity for something to be lost in translation if there's a middleman involved. And I've seen that a BI team has their own goals, their own KPIs, they're tracking their own thing. They're there to serve as a resource. But if you're able to pull your own data and analyze it, I think it's better to have that closed loop, and especially because oftentimes you can find certain things that you weren't expecting. In the process of looking into certain analyses, you may find a relationship you didn't know existed, or didn't expect to exist. But if you're the one looking into it and you kind of understand the kind of the drivers behind it, or the potential drivers, you can look more into it, and that connection may be missed if you're outsourcing it to another team. And that again has happened to me personally. So I find it deeply valuable to be able to do that on my own. One other thing is building credibility. So the more comfortable you are with data, I think the more kind of right you are. We have a principle at Amazon called "Are right a lot," if you can make your points and back it up with data, I think you'll oftentimes find that you're right, and peers will come to you more and more for insights and recommendations, even outside your subject matter expertise. And then finally, I think motivating partner teams is very helpful in any role, not even product management. And being able to speak to data very fluently is incredibly helpful with that. So, going back to the slide on entitlements, if you can use entitlements, especially a common entitlement or a common metric like revenue, or order volume, or whatever that everyone cares about, if you can show that this initiative or this feature or whatever that you're reliant on this other team for can drive this improvement, especially if you can tie it back to customer value, like with pickup, it's faster, cheaper, etc. I think you'll find teams much more receptive to your arguments and willing to work with you, because it's all out there. You're not. It's hard to question it if the data is there and backs it up. So yeah, very, very helpful in that regard. That's basically it. I think I'll just close with some resources that have helped me a lot. So on the data side, SQL is kind of the bread and butter of any data analysis. I've done a lot of SQL courses in my day. I found Vertibello Academy to be far and away the best, because it really puts a premium on teaching you basically giving you hands-on experience for every single lesson, instead of kind of just teaching you and I don't know how to explain it, like just feeding you kind of the data instead of letting you do it hands-on. I think Vertibello Academy does a really good job of blending that together, and it's helped me a lot get to where I am. DataQuest also is very helpful, kind of a similar approach where it's very hands-on instead of just teaching you certain things, with video or what have you. And then obviously nothing beats real-world practice. So once you get the basics under your belt with SQL, depending on what company you're at, you should just ask for database access, write your own queries. They can be basic, and you'll just, practice makes perfect. So that's definitely what helped me get to where I am, is real world practice in combination with these courses. And then product management, I think decode and conquer is a pretty common recommendation. You may not get all those questions that are in that book, but they're certainly helpful for, I guess, improving your analytical thinking and kind of your ability to process different industries and different prompts and different questions. So I think that's helpful. And then I commonly look at industry news and articles to stay up to date, what the trends are, how our competitors are doing, and then just a little tactical advice is setting up a daily Google alert about whatever your business is. So I've set up one on Amazon Whole Foods so that I see every day kind of what people are talking about, and it helps me kind of stay in the loop on things that I wouldn't normally get just being more insular in my kind of day-to-day environment of working. And that's it. So thanks for tuning in. You can always reach out to me at Corbett Hobbs on LinkedIn, and I hope this was helpful. Thank you.